So, Pokemon actually has gardening, but it's under the guise of what's called berries. And you can grow little plants and harvest their fruits and seeds and grow them again. Now, every every region has their own forms. Every plant grows differently in different regions. This is how what a pecha berry would look like, and it grows into a tree with leaves that have 5 lobes. But if you plant a pecha berry in a different region, it grows differently. If you're in Sinnoh, you can even plant some berries there. And the plants themselves have unique shapes. The shapes of the plants are always different, so we won't be discussing the shapes of the plants of the berries. But what's worth noting is that you take the berries and you put them in the ground and you water them in. And then over the course of a couple days, depending if it's an orange berry or citrus berry, it will grow quicker or slower. Here you can see I've time-lapsed it, and we have our fruits emerging, the little berries. It took about, I don't know, a day. There's cherries on the left and pecha on the right. Now these little berries you can put in your pocket. You can put them in your pocket and give them to a Pokemon. And a Pokemon knows how to eat them because they're naturally occurring. Now you could give a potion to a Pokemon. You could give a potion to a Pokemon and it won't know how to use it as a held item. But you can give them a berry because they live around berries and they know, okay, I can eat this. And you can also... look how long this is. I can water berries indefinitely. Okay, moving on. There are many berries in the world of Pokemon. Here's a display of some of them here. You can see there's like a Watmel and Pecha and Nanub and Citrus, and behind my face there's some Lum berries. They look delicious. Yeah. In the world of Pokemon, a berry is just a fruit. At the end of the day, when we say berry, it's just a type of fruit. Now let's look at fruits. There are 3 ways that you can reproduce as a plant. One, you make spores. So you can be a fern or a fern ally and make spores. And those spores they blow in the wind and they land where it's wet and they'll grow into new plants. You can make cones. A cone is a big structure that can open up and drops the seeds out. Gymnosperm means naked seed. It's a structure in which the seeds are just kind of exposed. And the final one is the fruit-bearing plants. You can make fruits. Angiosperm is that group. Angiosperm means to encapsulate the seed. So all the seeds are encapsulated within a fruit. Yeah, but to make fruits, you have to have flowers. So all the plants that have flowers are the ones that make fruits. Now, it's important to know that because if you look at flowers, the flower eventually becomes the fruit. So we need to understand the 4 parts of the flower. They're called whorls. The first part of the flower is called the sepals. So it's called the whorl of sepals. The whorl is when you have 3 or more leaves or modified leaves attached at one point. So everything that we're discussing is a modified leaf, just super specialized. So the sepal is the first whorl, and they're like protective tissues to protect the rest of the flower. Number 2, petals. Petals are specialized leaves. Often they're showy, and they have some way to signal to something, or they could just be functional in like protecting the internal structures. Stamens. This is the part that produces the pollen, and the pollen makes the sperm. And then in the middle we have the pistil, which is the part that makes the ovary, which makes the eggs. The pistil itself is sticky on top. The very top is called the stigma. It's sticky. And then it goes down this long tube, and then this thing at the bottom is the ovary. And the ovary has the eggs. And the pollen makes a really long tube. So watch this. We have a little video. Okay, here we go. Here's the video. Pollen lands on the stigma, makes a long tube down the style into the ovary. And this tube is one cell that goes all the way down. And it goes inside. and it fertilizes the egg. So, and then when you have fertilization, you get fruit. So this is what the fruit would look like. Inside the fruit, there's seeds. Yeah, this is the winner. This one made it. Hayden has a question. Do all plants have the capacity to make fruits? Do all flowers? Yes. I mean, in theory, yes. If it makes flowers, then it can make fruits. If it doesn't make flowers, then it cannot make fruit. Raymond, you found out there's a flower with a claw. Is it the blue bonnet? All right. So, fruits are the mature ovary or ovaries of one or more flowers. So if you have a flower, there's an ovary in there, and if it's fertilized, it can become a fruit. And so this diagram, I've removed all the labels because it's overwhelming. But if you look at this flower, this is a little flower of a tomato. We have this green stick here. This is where the pollen would land and go down or up. It doesn't matter. It will travel towards the ovary and fertilize them. And if you jump ahead several weeks in time, you'll see that this center swells up and it becomes what we know as a tomato. So every fruit you've eaten is an ovary. We are eating flower ovaries. Yes, ovary consumers. Every morning I eat hundreds of processed ovaries. Yeah, oatmeal. You like ovaries, there you go. Fruit lover. So, fruits are swollen ovaries made of 3 layers. So to understand Pokemon berries, we need to understand the most basic of all fruits, and that is called the berry. There's many types of fruits, they all have different names, based on the way the 3 layers develop. The most basic one is called the berry, and the wild grape is an easy example. That there are 3 layers. They're all named carp, as in like related to carpal. So exocarp is the outer layer, and in the berry, it's the skin of the berry. A grape is a type of berry. 2, the mesocarp. Meso, middle. The middle of the fruit. And then endocarp, the inside. In the berry, it's typically the tissue around the seed. And so that's the basic way that the fruit develops. So a fruit is made of these 3 layers, and these 3 layers are called the pericarp. And the pericarp has exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. And depending on how those 3 layers develop, that dictates the type of fruit it is. All right, so we can classify fruits based on their layers. What does they say about Shrek? Shrek is like an onion. He's got layers. An onion is not a fruit, but there's a lot of layers. Fruits have 3 layers. Let's look at those. Okay, now it can get more. You can keep categorizing. It can be a dry fruit or a fleshy fruit. Dry means when the seeds are fully mature, is the fruit still wet or is it completely dry? So if you want to, if you were using all the appropriate botanical jargon, you'd say, when the fruit is physiologically mature, is it dry? And so physiological maturity is when the seed is fully ready to grow and be planted. This one is a dandelion fruit. Each of these little sticks is called a Cypsela, and this is a fleshy one. This is your little mangosteen. But sometimes they aggregate and they get stuck to each other. So look at this. Sometimes the fruits get aggregated. And you have a thing called an aggregate fruit. We'll talk about those. And sometimes you have a thing where they get stuck together, but you can't even rip them apart. They're called a multiple fruit. If you can rip them apart and they're still independent, then they're aggregates. And if they get mashed together, they're multiple fruits. And sometimes you have crazy things like accessory fruits. An accessory fruit is where the thing that we have that's sweet isn't even the fruit. It's just something else that's swelled up. Okay, so let's go dive into the world of berries. You always have to begin with the first berry you get, which is the cherry. On any Pokemon adventure, you start off with the cherry berry. Now, this little guy is what I will do is I will say what it's based on its real life counterpart and the type of fruit it is. So the cherry berry is obviously is obviously based on a cherry, and the cherry is a type of fruit called a drupe or a stone fruit. A lot of fruits like to get stoned, but these are specifically stone fruits called drupes. And the thing that defines a drupe is that it has the outer skin, the exocarp. It has the middle skin, or the middle layer, called mesocarp. But then the endocarp gets really hard. So the endocarp gets really hard around the seed. And that's what we call the pit, or the stone. So in a drupe, the endocarp becomes woody and lignified. Now this one's crazy. You know the old resto chesto strat? Use rest and hold a chesto berry because it wakes you up? This is not a fruit. Big mistake. This is a flattened underground stem. Chesto, as in Chinese water chestnut. Here's a picture. This is the plant. This is the plant, and it produces roots, and at the base of the roots it produces a thing called a corm. Say that with me. Corm, with an M. Yeah, corm is a flattened underground stem. Bananas do this, and so do water chestnuts. Now, if you look at the Japanese name, it literally means propagule, or little propagative unit. Our English translation was just chesto, so people think, oh, it's a chestnut. But if you look at the thing itself, the shape, it's blue, it's shaped like a flattened stem. Its Japanese name literally means propagule. Yes, taro and kalo, they're corms. Exactly. So, this is not a berry, but this is a stem. Pecha, the peach. It's a drupe. It's a stone fruit. Stone fruit. And just like the cherry, it has the three layers, the outer layer skin, the mesocarp, which is fleshy, and then the pit is the endocarp. There you go. And this one, they cut it so you can see the seed in there. This whole woody layer is the fruit itself. So that's still part of the fruit. You just can't eat that. We love pecha. Pecha reveal. Rost. The rost berry is like a little blue strawberry. But a strawberry is weird because this is the strawberry fruit. This little tiny thing here is called an Ackee. This Ackee is one fruit. But we see the whole thing. There's tons of Ackees on a strawberry. So this is actually called an accessory fruit. Learning time. Big jargon moment. So this diagram is a flower. This G is the female carpal part. These gray things are petals. This is like if we're looking at the side of a flower, but we're only seeing the stem that holds the ovary. So this is the ovary that becomes the fruit. The gray is the petals, and then this is called the receptacle. So this is the ovary, and that's the receptacle. Receptacle is the tissue at the base of the ovary. But sometimes something crazy happens. Sometimes the ovary actually is inside the receptacle a little bit. And we have words for these things. The G. You found the G there. I didn't put that there. That came with the diagram. So if the ovary is on top of the receptacle, it's called hypogynous. If it's kind of around, if the receptacle is kind of around the ovary, it's called perigynous. And if it's all the way inside, if the ovary is inside the receptacle, it's called epigynous. Epi, like around. And so the ovary is what becomes the fruit. And so if the fruit is completely surrounded by receptacle, then maybe the receptacle becomes part of the tissue we eat. Yeah, everyone best behave. Now you can be dirty, that's fine. Okay. If you look at strawberries are hypogynous. So there's a bunch of little ovaries on top of a receptacle. But in the strawberry, the thing that gets big and red and sweet is the receptacle. And we eat that. So this is a big receptacle, a swollen receptacle with Ackee fruits. Each of these little dots is a fruit. So you're eating a lot of fruits here. Now, raspberries, they look like this. There you go. That is your morphology of the raspberry. Asper. This one's fun. It's just Asian pear. A-S pear. Asian pear. Easy enough. This one is cool because it's a poem. Not a poem like you would sing or write to your partner, but P-O-M-E. Pome. A poem, yes. Poem? I'm going to say poem. And these are crazy because they're epigynous. We just learned about accessory fruits. They're epigynous. So the ovary is deep inside of the receptacle. So what we're eating when we're eating pears is receptacle. We're not eating the ovary. Isn't it French for apple? Yes, I think so, Captain Lewis. And so here's a cross-section of the flower of the pear. Hypanthium is the receptacle. It's a specific name for part of it. The pedicel is this thinner part, and then the hypanthium is this part here. But I say receptacle because it's more inclusive. So this flower, you can see the ovary is inside of the receptacle here. Exactly. And as this ovary swells, it takes the hypanthium or the receptacle with it, and that becomes sweet and sugary. So here's a cross-section of the pear. The exocarp is this little line there, and then mesocarp, and then endocarp is in there. So the fruit itself is really small in the middle. But then the thing we eat is the receptacle. Mostly we eat the receptacle. Are we eating a bunch of strawberry ovaries and one strawberry? Yes, you are. So this is the poem. Lepa. It's an apple. Lepa is also a poem. And you can see on the cross-section on the right, this whole big area here is the receptacle. And then the fruit itself begins right here with this line. It probably looks like this. You know, that's cute version of a lepa berry. Get that PP up. Oran. Oran is an orange, except it's the negative hue of orange, so it's blue. And this is a type of fruit called a hesperidium, specifically defined by having a leathery exocarp. Leathery exocarp. Lepa. So chamomile king, a lot of the fruits, all the berries are basically misspelled fruit names. You got a great point there. Lepa and apple and oran, they forgot the G. I found it. So, here we are. The orange is a hesperidium. It's basically all citrus. Leather. It's a leather fruit. Yes, you have that in common with it, Morg. Congratulations. You can see that the exocarp, there's a specific name for this tissue within hesperidiums called the flavido. Flavido. The mesocarp is called the albedo, which is kind of the part right inside the exocarp and mesocarp together called the rind. But the mesocarp will be lighter and have a different texture, and it's called the albedo. And then the endocarp. The endocarp is the very inside of the rind that produces these little sections, the segments. Relo, this is your favorite. Yes, the Rutaceae. Each of these little sections in here is called juice sacs or vesicles. In the scientific literature, they write juice sacs. So you can say, look, I like those little juice sacs, and that would be accepted in the literature. Each of these sections is called a segment, and they form from the ovaries. And they're quite strange. But the fruit itself is basically the rind. And then this is a very strange formation. But there's your hesperidium. Now, if it were an oranberry, it would be blue and look like that. If you cut it open, it'd look like this too. Citrus is obviously a citrus, but it kind of has the shape of a citron or a pomelo. These are also hesperidiums, just like what we saw. Persimmon. the persim berry is based on persimmon. This is a berry, so it's pretty straightforward. It's got a skin, and it's got mesocarp that's fleshy, and the endocarp that's around the seed, and the seeds are in there. The lum berry. The lum is a plum, specifically the Japanese plum. And a plum is much like a cherry. It's much like a cherry or a peach. It's a drupe, so the inner layer is hard. Figgy berry. The figgy is a fig. Isn't that easy? But isn't it cute? Because now we know that there is wasp pollination within Pokemon. This is a type of fruit called a syconium. It's called a syconium. Syconium is a weird one. This is our first multiple fruit. A multiple... Thank you. I will be drinking this water. It's our first multiple fruit. A multiple fruit is when you have many flowers with their ovaries developed. The ovaries develop, and then they all kind of fuse together. So if you look at this one on the right is the inflorescence, or the stem of flowers. So this is a stem, and the stem's curved in on itself. And every of these little bumps you see is one flower. There is a hole here. If you look at the evolution of figs, their relatives look like this, but they're flat and open. There are relatives of figs that have this same inflorescence, but they're not closed off like this. Now, something can go inside, like a bee drill or a little wasp, and pollinate it. And then once it's pollinated, you get fruits, right? And so the one over here is the fruits. These are called, it's a fruit. You can call it a syconium. Or if you want to be fancy, you can call it an infructescence, which is the stem of fruits. So any multiple fruit is going to be an infructescence, a stem of fruits. So this one thing is a crazy, weird stem where it all forms on the inside. So perhaps wasps are very important pollinators. So are flies. Yeah. Perhaps a bee drupe pollinates the figgy berries. Wiki. Now everyone says, oh, it's a kiwi. No, it's not. I don't see a single kiwi that looks like this. It looks like a horned melon, which is a peepo. It's a peepo, which is a special type of fruit in which it has a thick rind. Now, maybe it would look like this. Peepo's fun to say. There's actually a lot of things that are peepos outside of the Cucurbitaceae. Oof, that cough. Heliolitis. You're a biologist and Poke fan. Hey, okay, well, welcome. You're in the right place. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Mosquitoes also pollinate Relo. Mosquitoes, bees, wasps, flies, they're all pollinators. Flies are really important pollinators in cold climates. They're the first pollinators in Texas. In March, the flies come out before the bees. Wikiberry, a peepo. If you cut it open, it looks like this. The horned melon is kind of fascinating. It's from Africa, and it's kind of a green inside. Peepo has an outer layer called the rind or the exocarp. The mesocarp is the flesh, and then kind of between the seeds is what the endocarp becomes. Mangoes is the mago. The mago berry is a mango, and mango's a drupe. It's like a stone fruit, basically. The agave is a guava, and guava is a berry. Pretty straightforward fruit. On this picture here, you can even see the little remnants of the flower on this end. So the flower was right here, and the ovary swelled up, and classic basic berry. Yeah, I can never say this right. Ipapa? Like, okay, look at this guy. It was even in Pokemon Concierge. This thing looks like a papaya. And in the Pokemon Concierge, they show its insides, and it even looks like a papaya. The papaya is a peepo. Some people say it's a berry, but the cultured among us will say it's a peepo because it has a thick outer rind, and then it forms the seeds in the middle. It's a berry where the outer layer is very thick. Here's our beloved papaya tree, one of my favorite fruits. Tipo. Raspberry. Now this is where we get fun. This is a ras, and it's based on the raspberry, which is an aggregate of drupes. Drupelets. An aggregate of drupelets. Now this is a fun one because it's an aggregate, our first aggregate fruit. If you take a raspberry and pull it off the plant, you'll see that it's a bunch of tiny little things. Each of these tiny little things is a drupe. And when they're aggregated, we call them a drupelet. You could pull these apart and they would remain intact. And so that's what we say makes it an aggregate. But they form as a whole together. The outer layer is the skin, the mesocarp is like the juicy stuff, and then the endocarp. The endocarp on this one is around the seed, but we can break through it with our teeth, unlike other stone fruits. Now, if you want to be real fancy, you can call it a drupacetum. So there's a ton of jargon within the plant botanical morphology world. And in this situation, what you do is you take the type of aggregate it is, so this is an aggregate of drupes, and you add sedum to the end. So if it's an aggregate of follicles, then it's called a follicetum. If it's an aggregate of drupes, it's called a drupacetum. No one ever says drupacetum. Everyone will just say it's an aggregate fruit. This is the blackberry, which is a blackberry. The blackberry is also an aggregate of drupelets, but there's a distinguishing difference. A distinguishing difference in this fruit. Now, in the flowers, if you look at the flowers, each of these little green sticks, this is what the raspberry flower looks like too. Each of these green little sticks is one carpel that makes one drupelet. So one of those sticks becomes one tiny little drupelet on the blackberry. And this one is hypogynous. So the little ovaries sit on top of the receptacle. And here we can see the thing that keeps the blackberry different from the raspberry is that the receptacle stays with the fruit. And so you can eat the receptacle of the blackberry. This too is an aggregate of drupelets. So this is a drupacetum, if you want to be fancy. And it has the receptacle inside. Aggregate of drupelets. The drupacetum, baby. That's right. Nanib. The nanib berry. Nanib berry is a banana. This one became popular because of Pokemon Go. I hadn't seen it previously until I needed to slow my Pokemon down, make sure they didn't flee. There's many different species of bananas in the world. And they're in Southeast Asia, in Papua. Now this one is called the pink velvet banana. And these bananas are berries. Sometimes people describe them as a leathery berry because the outer layer is kind of leathery, but it's truly a berry. Here you can see the cross-section with the seeds. It's kind of a basic fruit. We love it. Wheat pear. Wheat pear. We had the wheat pear is the western pear, which is also a pome. And compare that to aspear, the Asian pear and the western pear. Easy naming, right? Pome review. Where's Pome Boy when we need him? Pinap. Pinap. Pinap, my favorite Pokemon Go berry. The pineapple. This is a multiple fruit again. This is called a Syncarp. Now, it's a multiple fruit because each of these little bumps that you see, each of these little sections is one fruit. And you cannot rip them apart without, them being destroyed. So it's not an aggregate fruit, it's a multiple fruit. You can also say that this is an infructescence. It's a stem of fruits. Have you ever cut open a pineapple and you see there's that solid part in the middle that isn't as tasty? That's the stem. That's the stem. And so it's a stem of fruits. Now, you can better understand the development of the pineapple by looking at the flowers. These are the flowers. Each flower makes one fruit. You can see they're cute. Hummingbirds might come and pollinate them. It's a lovely little bromeliad. Once they're, fertilized, they become big and full, and the ovaries expand and they push on each other. And that's how you get the syncarp. this individual name of each of these fruits in the pineapple is called a cirrhosis. You can see in the flower there's this little papery bract underneath the pink tip. That remains on the fruit. There you go. A stem of fruits. We love to see it. Classic Central American fruit. The pride of Central America. The most tasty bromeliad. The pineapple. Okay, a lot of people have been asking about this one, but I haven't answered the points in the chat because this is quite a weird exception to everything that else we'll discuss. The pomeg berry is called the pomegranate, is obviously a pomegranate, but it's called a balausta. Balausta? Put that to a beat. Balausta. Balausta. Yeah, it's like pomeg. It's like a little apple with the G. This is a strange one. The exocarp is the outer skin. The mesocarp is right inside, and it's kind of foamy and it feels like foam. The endocarp is this like tissue that forms around the seeds. And the thing that we eat on the seed is the seed coat. In pomegranates, the seed coat becomes fleshy. And so the seed coat is called the testa. And if it's a fleshy seed coat, it's called a sarcotesta. Pomegranates and cycads have sarcotesta. It's different from other fruits that we'll talk about. But pomegranates are pretty strange, and we gave them their own name for the fruit because it's a very unusual thing. It's a type of very strange berry, honestly. It's balausta. Balausta. I think you need some Russian like dubstep music. Anyway, moving on. Kelpsea. Okay, kelp. This one is crazy. It has the name kelp in it. So, okay, maybe it's related to algae. And then you look at it, and it grows on a vine. Okay, that's not how kelp works. It says it's a berry to be eaten raw. If you cook them down, the juices you extract will bring out the flavor of any dish. Okay, great. That helps us. What is this thing? It looks kind of like a Loment. There's a type of fruit related to legumes, related to beans. Lord of the Nugget, that's right. Related to beans, called the Loment. It's in the Fabaceae. So in the Fabaceae, you can have legumes and loments. A loment is a dehiscent fruit that breaks between segments. And so each of these sections is one seed. In this type of fruit, it will dry out when physiologically mature and break between the seeds. Some acacia can do this. There's also a little plant called tick clover of the genus Desmodium. Desmodium has a fruit that looks similar to Kelpsea. So it's a Loment. I don't think people consume these, generally. I don't think there are many Loments that are eaten. Quallet. This is a loquat. Keeping the trend of simply reorganizing the letters of an existing fruit. This is a pome, yeah. The fruit of the loquat is actually all right here, and we eat the receptacle. Isn't that exciting? There were loquats outside of my track stadium, and so I would eat them before track practice. It's a great subtropical tree. So if you live in Texas or, Alabama or Florida, you can grow these with relative ease. DK. Donkey Kong. Big receptacle fan. That's right. They're tasty. There it is. Hondu is a honeydew. Melon, which is a peepo. So it's like the other melons we saw. Lovely. Peepo is a specialized type of berry. Grappa. Okay, grappa. See this one? If you go onto the websites, like Bulbapedia, they say it's like a grape. No, it's not. This looks nothing like a grape. This does not make, this is no way, there's no way this is a grape. Big mistake. 0 points. Failed the examination. It looks like a radish. It has even the same leaves as the radish. And the tip. This is the Helios radish, a cultivated type. Helios mentioned. That's right. It could be an onion, it could be a turnip, but the exact hue, this is exactly what this looks like. This is a root. This is not a grape. You're fooling no one, Game Freak. Call it the radish berry. Tomato. Turns out, in the world of Pokemon, there's a lot of things that look like horned melons. There's a lot of little berries that have spikes on them. So the tomato could be tomato with horned melon, which is a berry. Tomatoes are berries. They're pretty basic. They follow the rules that we set out. Okay, this one's fun. Calm. The calm berry. It looks like corn. It's definitely some type of grain. It could be, it doesn't. So people say, oh, it looks like grapes. It looks like grapes. Because they're purple, it could be grapes, but these leaves are fascinating. And it looks like sorghum. Sorghum is a really important grain from Africa, and we grow it in Texas. Sorghum is a type of dry fruit called a caryopsis. So this is an infructescence, and the arrangement of the stems, we call it a panicle. So panicle of caryopsis. That's going to be my my DJ name. But this is a single fruit. So calm berry is an infructescence. There's lots of little fruits, presumably. This one, obviously, it's a mangosteen. Magost. The magost berry is a mangosteen. They had to redo the sprite a couple times. I'm using all the sprites from Scarlet and Violet. But, yeah, this is a berry. Nomel. Nomel? This is a lemon. Continuing the trend of rearranging things, it's a lemon, which is the hesperidium, like all the other citrus we've seen. Spilon. Spilon's a horned melon. They love horned melon. Salty boy. The design philosophy. What if it had spikes? I think they needed more three-dimensionality to the fruits. So there's a lot of horned melon-inspired things, just because it's an unusual-looking thing, too. The spiky melon. Yeah, spellin. This one's wild. Palm tree? It's like a palm tree. The fruit of the palm oil tree is this thing. Each of these little things is a single fruit, and each of these is sometimes called a palm nut. The nut is the thing inside. These are drupes. So as they ripen, they turn to this hue. You can see that they even have the remnants of the flowers on the end. This berry I've never really encountered in game, but it looks like the guys from Super Mario Sunshine. Woohoo! But Grandma's choice. You'll show me a drupe. All right. Is that a threat or a promise? So this thing here, each of these is a drupe, and you can see the end has the remnants of the flowers, which you see sticking out there. This is your watermelon. Watermelon. This could really be any melon, and you know it has the name watermelon, so I showed a watermelon, but it could be anything. Yeah, it's a peepo, like all the other Cucurbitaceae. It's a peepo. Durian, son of Durian. This is Durian. Durian is a fascinating one, because when it's fully physiologically mature, it dries out and it splits open. Durian, also called durian in our world, is it's a type of capsule. And I put, there's many types of capsules. A capsule is a dry fruit that splits open called dehiscing. So it dehisces on specific suture lines. The way that it splits is described as, let me practice saying it, loculicoidal. Loculicoidal. That's close enough. Anyway, it's a type of capsule that splits in a very particular way along these like lines. So it's a dry fruit. There's a lot of fruits we actually harvest before they're physiologically mature. Cucumbers. You ever had a cucumber? What color was it? The color of the cucumber is green. Guess what color it is when it's ripe? Yellow. Cucumbers are yellow when they're ripe. But no one wants to eat a ripe cucumber because they don't taste very good and they're full of seeds. So we harvest them before they're physiologically mature. If you, this will dry out and split open. Okay, this one, Belue. If you ask Bulbapedia, they say this is a blueberry. Another mistake. Wrong. This is not a blueberry. The name deceiving. You know who got it right? The Brazilians. In Brazilian Portuguese, the translation translates to eggplant. It translates to eggplant. And this makes much more sense. This is much more reasonable. To tag your Brazilian friends and let them know that their Pokemon games are superior. Oka, this is cacao. This straight up looks exactly like the cacao fruit. Chocolate comes from this. Eggplant is a fruit. Come to Brazil. I will be. To sample some of the fruits. Oka. Oka is a cacao berry. Sometimes we call them cacao beans or nuts. No, they're berries. It's sometimes called berry-like because they're a little bit weird, but it's a berry. On this picture, you can see the different developmental stages. This really tiny one then will grow and fill, and as they mature, they turn orange. Okay, Paso. This doesn't look like any fruit I'm acquainted with, and so everyone is like, "Oh, it's a passion fruit." I said, "Sure, we'll go with it for education." So passion fruit is a peepo, and a peepo is just like any little cucurbit, any little melon. It's like a melon, except I put Lilycoin here, the yellow one. This one is the Spanish grenade. What? I don't know. I think it translates to grenade. And then this is the one we have in Texas. The thing we eat is a seed coat extension called the aril. The aril is a sweetened outer coating of the seed. Sometimes seeds have arils to collect, to help in the wind, to make them disperse in the wind. Sometimes the arils are full of sugar. Sometimes the arils are full of fat to attract ants to come and eat them. We eat the juicy seed coat extension of the passion fruit. And then this is Lilycoin. This is what this thing looks like to me. Paso is just this little guy. Surskit? Isn't that right? This is not a fruit. This is just little guy. Wakan. So this is an unusual one. The Wakan berry could be a couple different things. But what seemed most reasonable was it is the fruit of the genus Parmentiera. You can see these are two different species here, but on the tree you can see them hanging down. It looks like a pacifier. Yeah, it does. This is a berry. This is a berry. There's the flower up there. Okay, the rindo berry. The rindo berry? You say, oh, tamarindo. But so tamarind is a legume where it just kind of looks full. This one is specifically little spheres that are connected. It looks like a Loment to me, much like the tick clover we saw. Some people suggest that it looks like a soybean or a pea or tamarind, but it's really a Lomentum because of the separation of the seeds within this pod, much like the tick clover. It even has 3. This one has 3, just like the rindo. Yachi. Okay, we're hitting more multiple fruits. Yeah, we're hitting more multiple fruits. This is the yachi fruit, which has distinct little sections. Each of those sections is one ovary that has swelled up, and they become stuck together, making a syncarp, or multiple fruit. This is cherimoya. So I've grouped some of the berries that are similar. So cherimoya is also related. There was the appropriate hue. And if you cut it open, you'll see this what it looks like. Each fruit makes one seed. They're fused together, and there's a syncarp. Yeah, reduce that ice damage. Custap. Custap is a sugar apple. You can see it has the distinct sections of the individual fruits that have merged together, much like the regular one. This is related to our previous one. I've grouped them because they're all basically the same. Don't mention Cynthia's Garchomp. That's going to be devastating for me to recall that moment. Babiri. The babiri is also related to the previous two. Cut it open, looks the same. The outer layer is a little different. Each fruit comes out to a protrusion. Babiri does this too, based on our beloved fruit, that English common name, lemon meringue pie fruit. I want to try this one. I've never had it. Bariba fruit. Yeah. I posted this one. This one is not mature. It's just green, and it will dry out and become a different color. Chapel. The chapel is a Java apple of the myrtle family. You can see that they look pretty similar here. The roap, also kind of a Java apple. In this picture here, you can still see the remnants of the flowers. There's the seed inside. This is a berry. It kind of looks like a pome, but when you investigate the layers and the tissues, it is indeed still a berry. It's not a pome. And we call it apple because the texture feels kind of like an apple. Sometimes they're called wax jambu or wax apple, mountain apple, Java apple. Yeah. So those past two are kind of the same. You can see here the extensions are reminiscent of the, I believe that's the style, the carpal. And then here you can still see the fruit, the flowers remaining off the edge. Kibia is the kibia fruit. The kibia berry is based on the Ackee fruit, which, when physiologically mature, splits open. So it's a capsule. This is also called a chocolate vine. I think it's from Korea, right? This one I've never had it, but when physiologically mature, it splits open and the seeds are all in there. Apparently, it's chocolatey. Chaka. This is a direct copy of cashews. The fruit of the cashew is this thing down here called the drupe. That's the actual fruit, and then this is it's the pedicel and the receptacle. So it's basically the tissue that holds the flower that ends up getting sweet filled. Now, if you look at it as it's maturing, you can understand the fruit better. So the cashew, that's the fruit. And if you look at the top, you can see that receptacle and pedicel is not filled yet. It's starting to fill up. Chaka is a drupe. Yeah. Koba. Now this is kind of a strange looking Pokemon berry, but its name is reminiscent of the mountain papaya, related to the papayas we cultivate frequently. Its name is Babako. And here you can see it has a bluish hue on the outer skin. When it's ripe, it changes color a bit, but you can see it's a little peepo. It's also like the papaya. It's a peepo. There we go. Okay. Payapa. Is this a papaya? Papayas don't have this kind of bump here, but it sounds like papaya. It is its Japanese name makes more sense than our English name. The Japanese name means calabash squash or gourd. It's specifically a type of gourd like this, and it's a peepo. It's a cucurbit. Tenga. Has anyone had the patenga, the Suriname cherry? A delightful little berry. I love how they change hue as they grow. You can see they start off green, then they turn yellow and orange, and then dark red. The tanga berry looks like a immature patanga fruit. You can see it even has the little shapes here, like the ridges, and then the remnants of the flower remain there. You can see that the little bump is there too. Chardi. This is not a fruit. Nothing gets past us. Chardi is a Chinese artichoke. This is no fruit. It's a stem tuber. It grows under the ground. And it makes these little restrictions in it. Just like Chardi. This kind of looks, this looks like a maggot or some kind of weird worm, right? Ew, yeah. That's right. It looks a little gross, but you can eat it. Tasty, eh? Cassib. Cassib is a Buddha's hand, which is a special cultivated variety of citron. We saw citron earlier. This one is it's Buddha's hand. If you've seen them, they extend out. They have a lot of exocarp. It's a hesperidium. Haban is a strawberry guava. Strawberry guava, which is a little berry. Colbur. The name Colbur is reminiscent of a cocklebur, but it also, yeah, coming back to the horned melon, it also looks like a horned melon. But for the sake of adding a new plant to discuss, cocklebur is a little Cypsela. Cypsela is a type of dry fruit. It's a type of dry fruit that we'll see many more of, actually. But this one has a the outer layer has little spikes on it. There we go. Chilan, called Chinese lantern or bladder cherry. It's a berry surrounded by a papery calyx. Now, let's go back and look at our flowers to see what the calyx is. If you look at a flower, the whorl of sepals is called a calyx. So if you combine all the sepals, you call it a calyx. So here, this bladder cherry is a little tiny berry surrounded by a papery calyx. So the sepals just kind of cover the berry. Yeah. Lychee. This one's crazy. Okay, first of all, the berry's name sounds like the fruit lychee or litchi or lychee. I had a professor from Australia and from the Philippines and from the United States, and they all said this word differently. James is picking the lychee berry off of this strange bush. It's a weird one, and they hang down like this. They hang down like this, just like off of the tree. It's a subtropical plant from southern China. I love this fruit. I realized it is so weird. It is one of the weirdest little fruits. And we will look at it right now. First of all, lychee looks like this. Fine, that's great. This is the seed in the middle. And then the part we eat is this white tissue. That's the fleshy aril. So the white part we eat is a seed coat extension that's really sweet and filled with sugar and stuff. Now, what is this fruit? We can call it drupaceous. It's kind of like a drupe. It's kind of like a drupe, but it doesn't follow the rules. If you look at the fruit tissue itself, the ovary just becomes the skin. The exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp are all just the skin. And that's quite unusual. And so I had to use this, paper to give this appropriate oomph because people don't agree on what this is. But it's a strange one. And adding to its weirdness, most plants produce one cotyledon called the monocot, or two cotyledons called the dicot. Guess how many cotyledons lychee has? 4. Why does it have 4? Lychee belongs in the world of Pokemon. It is a strange little guy, and it's delicious. And actually, they added many different berries based on the weird relatives of lychee. Longan. They have something in the Pokemon called Ganlon. Does this look like longan? No, this looks like a cake. But let's talk about longan. It's also weird. It's a drupaceous fruit with a fleshy aril. Rabuta, also related to lychee and longan. It's like a rambutan. It's got these little hairs on the exocarp, protrusions. It's another drupaceous kind of fruit with a fleshy aril. Lancet. This thing is also weird. It's not related to lychee or longan or rambutan, but it's kind of the same. I think it's Meliaceae family. This is langsat. You might have had this in the Philippines. It's also kind of a drupaceous fruit with a fleshy aril. And it has these little protrusions. Maybe it's reminiscent of the sun. Maybe it's the way you split it open. Weird one, huh? Salak. The name literally sounds like the salak fruit, which is from a palm tree. And it's called snake fruit. Additionally, it kind of looks like a cactus. Kind of looks like a prickly pear. So the salak fruit itself is a drupe. And these tuna, or the prickly pear, is a berry. Pitaya. If you've ever had pitaya or dragon fruit, then you've eaten a cactus fruit. The pitaya berry is the pitaya fruit, and it's a berry. You cut it open and it's full of seeds and pretty classic fruit. You can see the remnants of the flower up here. Salty Boy had a question. Is that why Calyrex Calyrex has the shape like that because it has the calyx. its crown is the calyx, which is like a bunch of sepals. That's why they're green, right? And it's a grass type. Apricot. Apricot, great name. This is how a baby says it. Give me my apricot. This is an apricot, except it's got weird colors. But it's got the nice little line like an apricot. You can see that line in this image here. It is very much like the previous drupes, like the cherry, like the peach. Got a big stone in the middle. The endocarp becomes lignified. Starf, the star fruit. Carambola, for those among you who use that. Carambola. Star fruit. It's a berry. Pretty classic fruit. But it's got weird colors in Pokemon. Enigma. Okay. This one is fun because it is quite an enigma to some people. What is the fruit of a sunflower? Well, that's an enigma to a lot of people. This image here is one fruit of the sunflower. The fruit itself is what we consider the skin. This is the seed of the sunflower. And then the thing you pull off the seed is the fruit. It's a dry fruit. It's a type of dry fruit. So when physiologically mature, it's dry. It's not fleshy. This type of fruit is called a Cypsela. A lot of the Asteraceae are Cypsela. The enigma, the little question mark, yeah, if only our sunflowers had question marks on them. There's the seed. So when you're saying, I'm eating sunflower seeds, you are. Because you're not eating the coat or the fruit. This is the fruit. You could say, I'm eating sunflower fruits and then swallow this. Missile, the mickle, however you say this one. Eiselberry is based on the miracle berry. If you've ever had the miracle berry tablets, what they do is you can eat this fruit and then sour things taste sweet. Isn't that a miracle? Then you can eat your hesperidiums with great joy. Okay, a lot of people say, oh, this kind of looks like grapes. The name, though, got me excited about its other thing it looks like. The jaboca berry is like a tree from Brazil called Jabuticaba. This tree produces flowers right off of the stem, and then they become fruits. These are delicious. There's one of these at a farm I had worked at, and I loved it. It's creepy to look at. Mario dude, if you're here, don't look at this. But it tastes great. This is the boba pearl tree, yes. Yeah, you can eat, yeah. These are pretty standard berries. You cut them open and, you know, they got the exocarp, the skin, mesocarp, and then endocarp right around there. There's a seed. Roselle. The roselle fruit, or roselle berry, is based on the roselle. Has anyone had this? I'm sure you have. If you've had any hibiscus drink, it's probably from the roselle fruit. Across the world, people drink hibiscus drinks. This is what it looks like. It's in the mallow family, Malvaceae. So it's related to marshmallows and hibiscus and okra and cotton. And these are what they look like. There's the little flower, and it forms this structure here. Now, the fruit itself, the true fruit, is a capsule. Much like how cotton and okra are capsules, the fruit of the roselle is this thing. But the thing that we actually utilize is the calyx, which is all the sepals that take on interesting properties. The whorl of sepals, sometimes we call it a false fruit, because these are just pieces of the flower that we end up calling fruit. It's a calyx. Okay, the key berry is based on the capsule, the Ackee. When physiologically mature, it splits open and looks like this. In folks in Jamaica will be well acquainted with this one. Now, there's a lot of toxicity associated with it, but the aril, the seed coat has a little fleshy extension on it that is consumed. Yeah, that's your key berry. Okay, moranga. Moranga. If you know breadfruit or ulu, this is related. This is morang. It's related. This also is a multiple fruit. This is a syncarp. So it's a bunch of little fruits, a lot of little fruits stuck together, much like how you have figs and pineapples that are stuck together. All right, last but not least, drum roll, please. I need to add a drum roll sound effect. Hoppo, this one. This is your Hisuian friend, Hoppo. This little guy is not a fruit. It's the flower structure of my favorite scientific named plant, Cumulus lupulus, the hops. If you want to be really fancy, you can call it a strobilus. Some people call it the flower cone, but it's the flower structure. It's an inflorescence. The strobilus, hoppo. Well, there you go.